Welcome everyone. We're going to make a start, assuming that people might still arrive in the next couple of minutes or longer. But let's not lose too much time, since we only have an hour. Um, okay, yeah, Delyth, very happy for you to admit people.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll admit.
okay. Yeah, so welcome to today's session. I will make space for our chairs in a minute, but just a quick introduction and overview of what to expect today. My name is Lina Arnold Fritsch. I'm a development support manager at Cymru Africa, and I usually facilitate the gender community of practice, which is a space for sharing learning and experience in the context of gender equality and women's empowerment. We run regular sessions on this, and we recently had two sessions on menstrual health and period poverty or period dignity initiatives. And following that, and a considerable interest that we sensed. There was a decision to create a designated space for interested practitioners to meet on a regular basis and come together and have more in-depth conversations about period dignity and everything connected to that, menstrual health and so on. And so this today is the launch of this separate sort of network. Yeah, and I thought I'll provide a bit of framework just so that it's clear kind of what the idea is for this. Let me continue. There's an agenda. Um, yeah, I will just do some housekeeping in a minute and explain the format, and then we will hear from Delyth Pannett, one of our co-chairs, just to from her perspective, a bit of background and reflections on the two sessions that we had. And maybe whatever you'd like to share, your motivation for chairing this. And then the focus will be on our second co-chair, Shadreck Sequesseque. I hope I said that sort of okay. We'll leave it to you to introduce yourself later. But yeah, we're really pleased and to have you here with us as a real expert in the field in Angola. And of course, there will be a space for questions and also then really an open discussion or conversation around future sessions, topics that you have in mind that you think would be really useful to bring up and that we could or the chairs could put on the agenda in the future. So there's the opportunity there to speak out loud. And then so I'll continue with the just the boring stuff but important. Just a quick note that the session will be recorded. So yeah, this is basically for people who can't join today. The recording will be made available later on. And if you don't wish to be seen, then yeah, you can turn your camera off. That's no problem. We appreciate if you have technical issues that might happen. It could help turning your camera off or leave and come back in. You are welcome to put questions in the chat. We'll do our best to address them, or the chairs will. You can also unmute yourself, raise your hand first, and speak. That's no problem. And also for introducing yourself, you could change your name if you haven't done so, so we know who's here. That's helpful. Yes, and just to say, yeah, we do expect everyone to be respectful, and we do welcome challenging conversations, but people's lived experiences are not up for debate. If you have any safeguarding complaints, there's information on that as on the SSAP on website. That's the organization we are hosted by. Okay, so those are just the few points to start with. And then here is kind of a quick overview of what this is about. It's a network, designated network to talk about period dignity and menstrual health initiatives. That can mean all kinds of things, whatever really people are interested in. But Delyth can say a little bit more about that. The idea is to have biannually sessions, or two sessions in a year. And most importantly, this is meant to be a self-sufficient group. So it's very much it very much lives from the involvement of the community, of the participants, and the agenda will be driven by suggestions. So we are taking much more of a back seat here as Hub Cymru Africa, and it's yeah. Uh, it will be led by the community and by the chairs. The current co-chairs, yeah, are here today, and you will hear from them. And but that's also something where people can get involved with in the future very much. So yeah, so Hub Cymru Africa is there for some support. We very much yeah support the launch of this. We're really happy for that people are interested in this and are really behind this, but it will be some admin support and promoting it. But yeah, again, we're not leading this one. Okay. I think yeah, well, there's always space for questions, but I think I'll stop there and hand over to Delyth, if you're ready. I hope I said everything important. Hi, Delyth.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Bore da. My name is Delyth Pannett, and I am currently the UK Country Coordinator for Days for Girls UK. To put it in context, we are an affiliate, although we are registered as a separate charity entity within the UK, but we are an affiliate of Days for Girls International, for those of you who may want to understand the context. I have been working in the menstrual health space for a number of years now, and the goals of Days for Girls within the UK and globally is to present two structures, which is one, our menstrual health education, and the second one is the provision of our washable menstrual kits. We do use other period products as well within the context of our framework here in the UK. But I can talk more to that if anyone's interested. The reason we developed these sessions was out, as Lena's correctly said, out of the last two sessions, there were a lot of questions about different types of projects that people were running within their countries, what was good, what was bad, what they needed support on. And so we felt that we needed to spend a bit more time on this and break it down specifically for the community where you needed support. For example, if somebody needed support on menstrual health training, education training, or whether it was in the actual structure of teacher training trainers, let's say, or even the construction of washable menstrual kits, because there are a variety of types out there. And that is the context of my part in this. I mean, I'm open to discussion on other things, and Lena's put my email address at the end if anybody has a specific question. What I will say is, in respect of funding, Days for Girls UK does not have a fund available, and neither does Days for Girls International, for any projects that people may want to propose to us. This is not what this community is for. Potentially down the line, we can talk about funding in general and other funding opportunities in the menstrual health space. However, I just wanted to clarify, this is not a funding-led opportunity. So I would love to introduce you to my colleague, Shadreck. I have known Shadreck for a number of years. He lives and works in Angola, and I will let Shadreck introduce himself to you. He has a very big role to play in the work that we do in Angola. So I'll hand you over to Shadreck.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Del. Like Del mentioned, my name is Shadreck Sequesseque. I'm the co-founder and executive director for a local NGO called Associação Nacional de Ajuda Humanitária, ANA for short. So we are based in Luena. It's the capital of the province called Mochico in the eastern region of Angola. So basically, ANA was established in 2018, and we have different areas of focus, but for today's meeting, we'll mainly focus on the menstrual health education. So before I talk about the work we do in Mochico and Angola, I'm so excited and honored, and I would like to, appreciate and thank Elena, my co-chair Delyth, and all the organizers for this important launch today, because we know all of us, I think, how important it is. So from 2003, in partnership with Days for Girls UK, we've been conducting or doing menstrual health education in Mochico province. So basically, we reach out to skilled girls and women in communities where we conduct menstrual health education to create awareness to the girls and distribute the reusable menstrual kit to the girls and women in the communities. So we've reached to quite a number of girls and distributed a number of kits at the same time. So we have also created a local sewing team in Luena just to try and overcome some of the logistical challenges to do with the importation of the kits and the sustainability of the project. I know Dale has mentioned about the other products that we'll not talk about today, but focus on the the reusable kits because of its sustainability nature. If you look at, the context of our province, it's a remote area, where if you talk about, the modern products that are disposable, the project will not be sustainable in that the girls will not be able to, to have easy access to these products. So the reusable one, we feel it's quite sustainable for us in that sense. So excited to be here, like I've mentioned, because a period dignity, as we know, requires a collaboration of quite a number of actors to come on board, because no single organization can manage to end period poverty alone. So I would like to hear from quite a number of you, to share knowledge about the best practices, and strengthen the collective action in that sense. So as Anna, like I've mentioned, we look forward to and excited to build partnerships and expand the menstrual health programs across Angola, Mochico, and beyond. If there are any other questions, be glad to actually share some more of the works that we do in Mochico and Angola. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadreck. I wanted to also explain that when we've progressed on this journey with Shadreck's organisation, and one of the things that we've been able to do because of our sustained project in that area, we've now started developing a project for boys. And last year, for the first time, we actually did boys' menstrual health education. because it was actually the male directors of the schools that asked us to do this. And although we do have it within the Days for Girls organisation, we decided that really it was crucial to bring the boys into the room as well. And Shadreck is the key deliverer of this. I mean, he speaks so many of the local languages that he was able to present this. And those sessions were such a big success. When I return this year, Shadreck will be developing those sessions further. And we'd be interested to hear of other opportunities, you know, if anybody's got any questions about what we did, you know, how we went about it, or what information we have. So I'm going to quite happily open up the floor if anybody's got a question or wants any clarity on what we've done, you know, what our target groups are, etc. We're more than happy, Shadreck and myself, to take those questions. Does anyone have a question? Or so if Shadreck is obviously can talk to this, but Moxico is a very remote province within the country of Angola. And it also, the reason we chose Moxico was because it was at the time the province itself was a fifth of the landmass of the country itself. Very remote, and also heavily contaminated with landmine and explosive remnants of war. So the infrastructure within the province is very difficult, and we also wanted to you know, get to the villages that are very remote, where we have been told since I work there that many of the girls actually use sand. They sit on sand during their menstrual period because they do not have access to anything else within the community. So, you know, if anybody wants to share a story or ask us questions, I mean, Shadreck is the expert on Angola. I am happy to talk. We also, as Days for Girls UK, we work in several other African countries. So, you know, please, I can see one question. Opani or Ernesto, I will share your question, which was, how can we benefit as a local Sudanese NGO? You're more than welcome to get in touch with me, Opani, because we currently don't have a program in Sudan. And I suppose the easiest starting point for us would be to discuss the basic education package that we can supply or help you with to develop if you have no current education program, menstrual health education program in place. It's not, you know, it's been developed over a number of years, and it's yeah, we deliver it all over the world. So, you know, if you want to get in touch with me directly, my email is at the bottom of the slides that Lena has put out today, and I'm more than welcome, you know, you're more than welcome to talk to me about how we can support you on that. I hope that's okay.
Hello.
Hello, Laura.
Yes, this is Laura from Uganda. And
Hello.
I am an executive director for an organization called Rugaho Foundation. We are mainly working with young girls, young people, basically around the economic empowerment piece, and also returning girls that had dropped out of school. There are a number of pieces that we are looking at. But one of the things that we have identified is most girls are not really interested in going back to school because of lack of sanitary, you know, the whole kit. I have researched about Days for Girls in Uganda, and I think I've just gotten into their website. I don't know what they are doing. Maybe I'll just reach out to the contact person and stuff like that. But as far as I know, there is a lot of, I would say, myths and cultural beliefs that could somewhat affect, you know, these girls using these locally available materials, you know, because I've had a number of organizations also trying that in many, many parts of the country. particularly the rural, low developed areas. So my question to Shadreck, how have you been able to get the locals to own, the packages that you're bringing to them? Are they being seen as foreign, or are you actually using that group? You mentioned about a group of either women or something that come together to make these pads from the locally available materials. And then also in terms of sustainability, do you charge a fee that these young people or the women that are interested in using the materials, they come forward and ask for a particular, they ask, but then you ask for a small amount of money that would allow you to continue your work in this particular area? How are you managing that whole component of sustainability, that this doesn't even continue, rather it continues beyond any small available resources that you're having right now? Thank you.
Great, Laura. Thank you for that very good question. Before I talk about sustainability, I think you've mentioned something, to do with culture norms and values, which is something that is very, very, very serious, because menstrual health education to date still remains a little bit sensitive in quite a number of communities. I would like to confess and actually even share with you that before I was exposed to the menstrual health education, I wasn't actually even confident enough, to open my mouth and talk about periods anywhere, because I grew up in a setup where we were taught, period. It's something that when a woman is on her periods, she's supposed to be isolated. She doesn't need to cook. She doesn't need to hold anything, that not even the water that people would drink, because it would bring sickness and stuff like that. So those are some of the myths that we grew up with. I would also like to share with you that recently I submitted a letter to one of the leaders, requesting for a session. And because there was period, or menstruation mentioned there, actually they sent back the letter for us to be able to correct it and remove that word. So those are some of the challenges that we are facing on the ground. But to be able to overcome that, it just requires a lot of, community engagement with the leaders, both traditional leaders, to make them aware that actually menstruation is something that is very normal, because without it, no one would be here, so a lot of community engagements, we managed to overcome that. I would say that to date, we are actually accepted. Challenges are still there, but we are slowly overcoming those traditional myths and cultural, misinformation about menstruation. So talking about sustainability, the reason why we chose to use to make the reusable kits, because these are the materials that the women themselves, they're like clothes. They know them, they easily appreciate them, because when you talk about tampons and these other things, these are some of strange things that maybe young girls or women have never even seen and they've never imagined. So when they look at them as, strange objects to be incited and stuff like that, they really try to shun away from using them. But when you get I wish I could show you the Days for Girls kits that we use. It's made out of fabric that is easily recognizable and, easy to use. It doesn't have side effects and stuff like that, because a lot of girls have reported that from these disposable products, they have side effects and stuff like that. But for the clothes, and the experience that we have is that there are no side effects, and they're easy to use, easy to wash, and stuff like that. So the local production, with the support from the locals, uh, companies, local businesses, we are able to produce very small amounts of the kits, and we distribute them for free to the girls. So we don't ask any amounts for the distribution. It's totally free. The schools also they just support in terms of mobilizing the girls, mobilizing and allowing us to use their premises for sessions, and then we distribute the kits for free. I hope I've answered your question, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shadreck. Yes, you have. Although I have other thoughts, I guess I'll be sharing them at a later point. Thank you.
I can see that Olivia Nakisata, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Olivia, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you so much. Olivia Nakisita, and I work for an organization called New Life, Adolescent and Youth Organization. And what we are doing is almost similar to what Shadreck is doing. We also produce the reusable sanitary towels. We use locally available material on the market. And then the young mothers in our communities are the ones that produce these pads. But what I have noticed and noted is that unless these pads are paid for by a partner to be distributed for free, I think the women who really need them are quite vulnerable, and they are not able to buy another pair if they really need to. And these locally available materials, if you're not at a large scale that you're going to import the material, they become very expensive in the long run to make these pads. And then I've also noted that when you look at so many social groups, menstrual hygiene is not a priority. Much as many people are rallying for stopping maternal mortality, cancer, polio, menstrual hygiene is not getting enough advocacy. And it is not easy for people to appreciate that you're making reusable pads, especially those that can afford it. And the situation in the ground, those people cannot come out to talk about challenges of menstrual hygiene, because just like where Shadreck is, even Uganda is highly cultural, that people think if someone gets to know you in your periods, then maybe they can bewitch you and you can't give birth again. So I think I want to learn from Shadreck. Have you tried to think about a business model? Because for us, we are thinking about a business model, and because it will give you more sustainability. And how are you making sure that when the number of pads that have been paid for you to produce for free and distribute are over, that you can serve other communities that are not targeted for that particular funding that need it? And how are you making sure that there's continued education? Because giving a product is one thing, but them making sure they are clean, they are put in the sun to dry, and they don't get infections is another. And how are you making people love the product that they come back and purchase on their own to reduce that dependency on free things? I submit.
Thank you, Olivia. For now, I think our main target, like I've mentioned, we are working in a very remote area with high poverty levels. So for us, in the meantime, the goal is easy access of these products, because majority of the women and girls that we serve, they live actually below the poverty line. These families survive on less than $1 per day. So you'd find that if we are to charge a price for now, they would definitely not be able to afford. Like you've mentioned, that the production process is quite expensive in the long run if we have no one paying for them. So like us, Anna, what we are doing, apart from the external support that we have, maybe from our international partners, as Anna, we have a number of other other projects that we are doing income generating programs. I wouldn't want to talk much about that because of time constraints, where we raise a bit of some funds to be able to, to sustain the project or the program in the long run. And involving quite local companies, local organizations. Fortunately, like in the Eastern region, it's a mining area, so we knock on the mining company as well to come on board and help support the program, so that the objective of actually providing easy access of the product to the women is made in the long run, because why we don't want to build a business model in the meantime is entirely on the poverty levels of the communities that we target. But for the urban areas, those that I can afford, we also advocate or actually engage them so that if they can come on board and support, the rural and remote areas, it will really be helpful, because you've talked about, the context is quite similar. In the rural areas, it is becoming a priority now, because majority of the women there have no any other products. They opt to use maybe unhealth products like rags, leaves, ash, sand, and stuff like that. So when we bring these products to them, and constant engagement with the community, constant engagement with the school management, constant engagement with the girls, slowly they are becoming to appreciate the product. I hope I've answered your question, Olivia.
Yes, you have, Shadreck.
Thank you, Shadreck. I do want to add, we understand that there are a lot of different reusable products out there. I mean, I think one of the last discussions was talking about the use of banana leaves and the technology that's available now to use banana leaves. Shadreck and I had an interesting discussion about this, because unfortunately we don't currently have bananas growing in the region, because otherwise we probably would have looked at alternative sources. One of the main issues that people talk to me about is the scarcity of water in some areas and what alternatives are available. And I will say that the kit that we currently use is designed to be washed in the minimal of water. And I've been working closely with a university here in the UK on a technology that's going to enable the kit to be washed in dirty water, because the actual fabric will be sprayed with a nanotechnology that will destroy bacteria and viruses when the fabric enters the water. So there are developments taking place. There's a lot of talk about these, and that's why we wanted to bring this community together, so that we can talk about what is really happening across, the continent, in different countries, what value we can add, what lessons we can learn from each other. I'm just reading another question. Opani and Nestor has said, as a way of learning and a way of building our capacities, our skills, and can there be an arrangement to attend trainings in period dignity with those of Olivia from Uganda, in order to be able to make strengthen us? And how possible can this be? This issue is big here in South Sudan and can make young girls drop out of school. I think if you can clarify, Opani, if you want to connect with Olivia, we at Days for Girls can support you with training online to start menstrual health education program. And that is, that is open to you. I will open that conversation to you. However, if you want to speak to Olivia, we can arrange that conversation takes place. That is what we want to do in this community. We want to learn from each other. One of the biggest barriers we found working across the countries was it's fine giving them, the actual pad, but what we found was the girls didn't have the underwear in which to use the pad. So our kids now carry underwear in order to be able to put the pad in, and therefore the girls. And our program then revisits those communities that we have done. We go and work on a cyclical basis. We will revisit those communities every couple of years to gather the data and the school attendance and whether those girls have now been supported in their education. And last year, when we visited, those girls were already telling us that they are now staying in school. And that is what is crucial for us. That is where our legacy, as far as we are concerned, is what we want to achieve in conjunction with local partners. And that is, a question or a discussion that I'm happy to have. I'm sure Shadreck, he can talk about how he's developed his program. It is interesting to hear about the cultural norms. It absolutely is present in all those countries that we work in. I also work in the Republic of Guinea, and we have a big problem there with the FGM, the practice of FGM being prevalent within the community. So we work alongside our partner there to develop our menstrual health education, but then also supporting that with FGM work as well. So, there are lots of topics to be discussed, and we are more than happy to support you. So if anybody has another question, please feel free, put your hand up, and we'll see where we can go from here. Oh, I will say, Laura, you mentioned trying to reach out for Days for Girls in Uganda. There are several Days for Girls social enterprises within Kenya, Uganda. So if you have an issue, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I will see if I can find a contact near to your location to link you with that organization, the social enterprise. I can't guarantee success because they are run by individuals as social enterprises, and therefore their capacity will depend on their unique situation. But if you need that information, I'm more than happy to reach out for you and try and link you up with your nearest social enterprise within Uganda.
Thank you, Delyth. I will reach out definitely.
That's no problem, Laura.
Yeah, sorry, maybe just to come in because the community of practice is all about knowledge sharing and stuff like that. Maybe I would like to hear also from from our partner, from the participants. What are some of the cultural issues that you've had around the menstrual health education initiatives in your countries and organizations? Anyone that can pick that, please?
Yeah,
Maybe I
Shadreck.
directed. Yes,
Yes,
Olivia, please.
Olivia here.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, for us, ours is more of practicality because our pads are given most of the people that fund for schools. And when it comes to schools, especially boarding schools, our pads have one color. We use one type of cloth. Yeah, so it becomes very difficult when you distribute these pads to a school, same color, same size, same everything. So it becomes a little bit challenging for the students, especially when you require them to expose them to sunshine. But also the other issue is wash. We take the reusable sanitary pads because they've been sponsored by the division, but they don't have an adequate water to be able to wash them for them to get clean. So we are getting issues, but also making sure we partner with those partners that are dealing with wash issues, providing tanks for water harvesting and that, so that where we are taking our reusable pads, we are able to get a partner who will sponsor a tank to harvest water from the iron sheets so that they are able to keep clean. Then culturally, ideally, in most of our cultures, our setting is multicultural. We have like 52 different cultures here. But there are some cultures that still discourage girls from using sanitary pads. and they prefer that probably they stay at home, probably sit in a basin. But with a lot of sensitization in Uganda, I think people are getting on board, but still have one challenge of affordability to be able to afford these products for them to use. Otherwise, for our setting, we believe it's a day at a time, awareness, giving the appropriate information, and making sure this information is reached, translated in different languages, but getting through different partners to be able to provide this information slowly by slowly. Some of the challenges that arise with not having proper menstrual hygiene will be reduced in our communities, especially the semi-rural and semi-urban and rural communities. I submit.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you for sharing that information. Really helpful. You know, it's I've had experiences where you go into a session and there are men and women, and as a man they would expect you to talk about something else, and when you start talking about menstruation, you'd see all of them inclining their heads. What is this man talking about? But after a session, as you go through, you'd see they start appreciating the information, when they start to understand that actually menstruation is something that is very normal, something that is very healthy, and stuff like that. Thank you, Olivia, for sharing that experience. Del?
I was just going to say, following on from what Shadreck said, one of the biggest, I quite agree with all the points you made, Olivia. They are so interesting. And, those taboos and myths surrounding menstruation are prevalent in society, even here in the UK. And as I would like to point out, one of the reasons we are committed to bringing boys into the sessions is so that future is also, not so nobody's left and nobody's excluded from the discussion. And that's what, Shadreck is our ambassador in that sense, because when he stands there, the girls and the boys are wondering why he's there. And, his presence just, basically tells everyone it is normal. We should be talking about this. And you just see the change in the room, especially when the boys are brought into the conversation. They ask, why are we being brought into this class today? Why are we being asked to do this? And then all of a sudden, within 5-10 minutes, they start asking questions. And that is what we want to do. And I think if we can approach, from the male and the female point of view, we are not going to leave anyone behind. And therefore, it's important that we also include men in the conversation, because most of the issue is a lack of understanding or a lack of education. As Shadreck himself said, culturally, those were the norms. So this is where we, as you said, Olivia, baby steps forward. And, we are proud of the work that everybody is doing to address these issues.
From my end, this is Laura again. From my end, I think there is so much wonderful work that is going around menstrual dignity for students, for young people, whether at school level or even in the different communities. But it's at that level. It's not at this policy level where more voice, and more effort can actually be added and recognized. The challenge that I'm bringing forward is that, I think Olivia mentioned it before, that we are doing so much, but then up here, within the policy influencers or the policy makers, there is nothing that has yet penetrated at that point, and that means that resources and all due diligence is going on to these other areas, which are equally important, but then that causes the menstrual topic not to necessarily be paid attention to. And also, so I think that we need a voice, whether it is us coming together in our different countries or even across the borders, and we advocate for these, even starting at community level, but going up to even the overall national levels. I think that would really go a long way to bring that whole component of period dignity, regardless of race or age or sex, across the board. But then also on the issue of sustainability, I remember at some point we were working out, writing out proposals to the different funders. And we realized that even some of the partners we would approach, they would only include their rates, like if they are providing a particular kit, a menstrual hygiene kit, it's at a fee. And that had to be included within the proposal, to allow that even when the proposals would be approved, it would mean that we would only supply this amount of kits for a period of time, and then that is it, you get. But even the point of approaching these amazing service providers, it is not a guarantee, with the whole funding area right now, it's not a guarantee that you're even going to get the money that can allow, us to provide these services. But I still also believe that having a consortium or a group of us working together to approach different funders, to work with people in developed countries to voice or to fundraise, something like that would go a long way than us working individually or even in our respective countries. Yeah. I'm happy to hear from Shadreck. I'm so sure that across Africa, the challenges are pretty much the same, But again, even for us that are in the field, we have so much that we can bring together to create the change that we want to see, at least to start, at that point. This is a very good platform. But in terms of sustainability, I remember Delyth, you mentioned we would be having, I don't know if it was you or I'm forgetting the lady who spoke earlier, that we'll be having like twice in a year where we would be meeting, as a group of organizations. So even that, the frequency of us meeting would further inform, on the level of priority or how much effort that can go into having, actual dignity in terms of menstruation across Africa. So I don't know if I've mentioned any challenges as I've been submitting, but that is honestly from me. Yeah, that the will is there, the passion is there, but in terms of effort, I think we can do better. We can do better as a group. Thank you very much.
Sorry to jump in, and I know you want to speak to Shadreck. I just wanted to advocate on behalf of, there is what we call the African Menstrual Health Collective, and that is an advocacy group, and Days for Girls also work with them to support different countries along there. We currently don't have a forum in Angola, you are correct, and Shadreck can speak to that, but every voice counts and every advocacy voice matters. And I agree, I'd be quite happy to, set into a different context and have a group outside where we talk about specific advocacy context or whatever. But, this is why this was set up today, so that we can bring those topics to the table and we can work together collaboratively. I know Shadreck is very keen to speak to that, so I'm going to let Shadreck take the...
Great, thank you, Del. I think, like you've mentioned, we are here today, it's the first step. We are launching the community of practice, and I believe, like Lara said, menstrual health requires a lot of advocacy. We need really to double our efforts in terms of the advocacy and stuff like that. And single-handedly or as single organization, it's really, really difficult. So if we come together, collaborate, share as much knowledge, share experiences, what are some of the best practices, based on our local experiences, that will really help us in terms of keeping us staying motivated and, to be able to give the advocates that we need. I believe, like Dale has mentioned, if we can have constant, engagements, collaborations, and sharing experiences and stuff like that, we'll really get there. Because if we keep quiet, like they say, if you don't talk about it, no one will. So as much advocates we do, we will definitely get there one day. Thank you.
Lena, I'm aware of where we are on time. I mean, we really, really want to move this forward. And I think that's what we wanted to gather from today as a collaborator with Hub Cymru Africa, of where Hub Cymru Africa can, maybe put us together. And the idea is that this community becomes self-sustaining. So we build this group with, if you like, Hub Cymru Africa as the umbrella organisation, just supporting us from an admin point of view, etc. So, if it's a case of you wanting us to come together and have a conversation separately from this, to start maybe planning how we would like the structure, or we want to email each other to begin with, just to find out what's the best way or what topic you'd really like to start addressing. I think advocacy is a great one. It's where we can all use our voices together to support the cause and to bring things together. And then, that is an excellent starting point. As I said, we won't dismiss any of the others, training, for example, if we can support you with technical expertise from a sewing point of view, I offer that, but also the menstrual health education. But it's great to hear from other people. And I think we're all going to take something away from this today. I've definitely learned a lot today. And I'm going to pass it over to Lena now, unless anybody else has another question. I think we've got about a couple of minutes, Lena, just to see if there's...
Yeah, we do have a few minutes. If anyone would like to make any more suggestions, I think it's come out through questions and contributions as well, kind of the points of interest. And yeah, definitely heard advocacy loud and clear being a matter of interest, which makes a lot of sense. But if there are any other ideas or suggestions, yeah, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you so much. For me, my submission is this is a very good platform, and we should use this opportunity to start advocating for issues of mental health, especially in our very cultural settings where mental health is not a priority. It is not seen as a priority, yet it anchors issues that are reoccurring, like teenage pregnancy, and I think if we could come up with an email loop for everybody, if possible, a WhatsApp group for continuous engagement, and then we have a more intentional meeting with clear way forward, like what are we doing next in line of advocacy, in line of pushing for policy, but the most important part of serving the communities, because there are those who have the kits, there are those who have the funding to give out the kits. There are those who have ideas on innovations of having kits that will be acceptable. There are those who have innovations of which locally available materials can make production less. And then we carrying forward, we start teaming up, having teams of who is responsible for what and how will the communication flow, but also how shall we be meeting. But if we have an organized, for instance, an email, then when someone does an activity, we share there for others to see and advise on whether it was done well or what should be improved or what should be innovative. Then I think this community of practice will go on. But also community of practice blends well when there's research. I don't know if there's any room for us to investigate on some issues. We are talking about culture for so many years, but we don't know why culture. We don't know why people are not adapting to new technologies. We do not know why people are adamant. Like the speaker said, for us, our strategy is we have some men on our team who talk about the pads. Actually, the person who actually talks about how to clean it is a man. But the eyes are like, what is this? But these are the people supposed to provide these pads to their wives, to their children who are young, so that they're able to stay in school. So if there's still this cultural barrier, which I think if HIV has been normalized, if cancer has been normalized, if Like people now no longer have a lot of stigma to read, then even menstrual health can be normalized. But this can be reached to, policymakers and people who are implementing will want to look at data which is published. And then if we could already start interesting maybe master's students, PhD students to do work around menstrual health so that we have many papers in for us to base on to be able to advocate, but also strengthen the community systems so that every day a politician talks about menstrual hygiene. In churches, they're talking about menstrual hygiene. And the people with products go to churches and see if the churches can procure to donate. And then slowly by slowly, we shall achieve what we want, which is good menstrual health, to be able menstrual hygiene and perfect health for the most vulnerable. I submit.
So I think there's a question. There is also interest in a WhatsApp group, Lena. And I think, that would be up for us to sign up for that as individuals and collectively. And I agree. I think a WhatsApp group is from my experience of doing other WhatsApp groups, it's a great platform to launch where you can come together collectively. Obviously under a set of guidelines, that what we are discussing, it's menstrual health. And I quite agree, Olivia. I work with PhD students here who are submitting papers, and they often come looking for ideas or how, they can where to start their research projects. And I quite agree with you that it's such a big topic, and every bit is valid. Everything you just said was valid. We've got to have a starting point, but I agree WhatsApp groups could be the platform that we launch this, and then we sort of formalize this into a structure from here.
I think that sounds good. And I can definitely share that suggestion with the network that we've kind of gathered from the last couple of sessions. I think probably the way the way to go might be just to contact you, Delyth, for now with your phone number, basically, and then you can be added so that we make sure everyone has consciously taken that decision to be part of that group, and it's not too big. It's just, I think it needs to be focused, and only people who really want to be involved are going to be part of that group.
I agree, Lena. I think, people may want distinct conversations, and that's fine. I am happy to facilitate the overall, sort of group in the sense of admitting people into the group, etc. As you say, they make a conscious effort to come into the group, and they've given their permission to be within that group. So yes, please feel free to use my number and create, I can, or you and I can discuss how we create a WhatsApp group, and then you can obviously admit those people to the group or give them the details on how to access the group. More than happy to do that. And then, we can develop the conversations from here. I'm very excited about it. I think it's a great almost start of an advocacy network. And thank you, Lena, for, taking this forward from a Hub Cymru Africa point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm really glad as well. I feel like, this was a really good starting point. Have a lovely day, rest of your day, everyone. And thanks again. Bye.
Bye.